welcome to this month's edition of the Self-Build Hour, where we will be talking about all things glazing. As a reminder, I'm Jenny Chandella. I am an architect, the lead of the Swindon office for Allen Corfield Architects, and I'm also your host today. So as a reminder for logistics, those of you who are joining us live today will be able to use the Q&A function to answer questions directly to our guest expert. So if you do not have the Q&A function, as I'm aware some people will not, please do feel free to use the chat, but Q&A is preferred. Following the presentation, we will be taking those questions and opening it up to a Q&A. So those of you who are here today have the benefit of asking those questions directly as and when they come to mind. For anyone who wishes to watch this at a later date, or people who are not with us today, it is being recorded today. So you will have the ability to watch this on demand. We've created the Self-Build Hour to bring this information to you in the comfort of your own home at the times that are convenient for you. So without further ado, I'll start to introduce today's expert. So we are going to be joined by Mark McLean. He is the director and owner of Glassworx. So we're going to be talking about all things glazing. There are so many options out on the market. So today is a really good opportunity for Mark, who knows a lot about the technical side of glass, because he comes from an architectural technology background, as well as he knows a lot about building physics as you're designing and detailing this glass. And Glassworx represents a lot of the major leading glass manufacturers throughout Europe. So he's going to come to us and just talk to us about all the things that will help you make decisions about your glazing choices. So without further ado, I will welcome Mark and hand it over to you. Thank you.
Hi Jenny, thanks very much for the introduction. So as Jenny said, my name's Mark McLean. I'm the director and co-owner of Glassworx, based here in central Scotland. Glazing as a whole is not always the most, shall we say, sexy of subjects. A lot of people think windows are windows. However, there is a lot more to the subject than meets the eye. And what we generally find is, with a lot of self-builders, when they start on this journey, it can be pretty much, you know, a bit of a rabbit hole once they start going down it. So rather than push specifics of products today, what we want to kind of do is give you a more holistic view to the actual process of how you would go about finding the right product for you, the right supplier, the right manufacturer when you start out in the self-build journey, or the self-build process. So put together a kind of short presentation. It's about 25-30 minutes, and obviously I'll be more than happy to take any questions at the end that you might have. So I'll just share my screen.
That's lovely. We can see that really well. Thanks, Mark.
Superb. So hopefully everybody can see that. So as I said, my name's Mark McLean, myself and my business partner Steph run Glassworx from central Scotland. We are based in Stirling, bang in between Glasgow and Edinburgh, but we service the whole of the UK. A couple of key points about us. We only work with Europe's leading manufacturers. We only sell triple glaze products that can achieve performance levels of 0.8 and below, and any product that we sell and distribute must have a minimum of 3 seals. That is our minimum criteria for representing the product in the marketplace. We supply to the trade and domestic customers alike. So if you do have a contractor who is running the build for you and you would like us to supply direct to them, we can. Likewise, we don't only do houses. So we've worked on educational facilities, NHS, buildings, office blocks, that type of thing as well. So we generally cover a lot of different building types. And more importantly than not, all of the products that we represent are independently tested. There's a lot of products out there on the market that, for want of a better word, are tested in-house. We tend to only deal with products which are tested by an institute like IFT Rosenheim, which is a kind of big government body and an independent testing house for products. That means that we know when we get test certificate back and data back that the product is going to do exactly what we say in the tin. And that for us is our kind of our stables, if you like, about the products that we represent. A bit about myself. As Jenny had said, I started my background off in architecture, and that's where I started this career in construction. Left school at 16, went straight into practice as an architectural technologist, and I did my apprenticeship. They then sent me through college, and I went on to further my career in architecture. I left architecture around about 16 years ago, when the market crashed and a lot of people were getting made redundant. And because my background was mainly in low energy, timber frame, that type of thing, I naturally fell more into that sector and realised that there was a kind of gap in the market for low energy glazing solutions, and I just naturally fell into this industry, and I've been here for 16 years now. I've delivered over 300 projects nationwide. As I said before, a huge variation from domestic and commercial. And in that time, those 300 projects have equated to around about 35,000 windows. Some projects have one window and door, and others have quite literally thousands. I have a kind of ethos about how we go about the process that we take clients through when they're beginning their self-build journey, or even if it's just a simple extension or a retrofit. And that is that, every project is different, and so is the client's budget and what they're looking to achieve out of that. We have what's called a consultancy-led approach. So, my business partner jokes about it all the time, and that, we are a couple of guys selling windows that really want to be architects, but it's actually in reverse. And that is that, when a client comes to us, it's our job to whittle through everything that they're looking to achieve, look at the building, look at the views, look at the orientation, and find the best product. So for us, it really is a consultancy type scenario that we go to. The end goal is obviously to try and sell you some windows and doors, because that's how we make a living. But we really do want to take a kind of a strong consultancy-led approach onto things to make sure that what you're buying is 100% correct for you. My business partner, Steph, again, comes from an architectural background. He's a qualified architectural technologist with over 17 years of experience in practice. He trained in Germany with a renowned passive house consultant, Hertz and Lang. He is a qualified passive house designer, and he's been involved in delivering and certifying over 150 passive house projects, including the first certified passive house in Scotland, England, and also was involved in the first certified educational facility. And it's at that point, working on the first certified educational facility and the first passive house, that Steph and I met. He was the certifier designer, and I was the window supplier. Again, Steph's strong points when he's speaking to clients is very much, whilst passive house is a fantastic concept, it's robust, it's seen as one of the most construction standards in the world as far as energy efficiency is concerned. If you take 60 to 70% of the passive house principle and you adapt that to any home, i.e., the fabric first approach, and you utilise tools like the Passive House Planning Package or PHPP, that is a great starting point for any self-build. So it's not always about, getting to that passive house standard with regards to, our products or what we're pushing. It's really about, adopting the fabric first approach with everything you do, and, picking the best possible products that you can to meet the energy efficiency that you're building. As a company, we have what we call our stables, and these are things that we find more often than not that we quote to clients on a regular basis, almost a bit like a stuck record player, if you like. But generally, a lot of people think that triple glazing is a new thing. Triple glazing isn't a new concept. It's been around since the late 70s, and we're a firm believer that wherever possible, triple glazing should be used if the budget and the building dictates. There is no such thing in the window industry as an equal and approved product. Each product has its own pros and own cons, and no two are the same. And what we mean by that is we see specification drawings from, literally thousands of architects a year. And when the specification comes in, it is very much timber, aluminium, and or equal and approved, PVC and or equal and approved, aluminium and or equal approved. And the truth of the matter is that is just a description. It doesn't get into the minutiae of what the specification of that window is to be, what colour it is, what it's to be made of, what the performance is. It just has a minimum, maximum, and it should look like this. And because of that, a lot of clients enter into the market, and when they're looking for windows, thinking that a timber aluminium window is a timber aluminium window. So as long as it's timber aluminium, everything is the same. So if they get quotes in from people, we would advise anybody to go out and get 3 or 4 quotations for their glazing package. A lot of the time when those quotes come back, there's one at 20, there's one at 30, there's one at 40, and there can be sometimes be one at 70,000. And that's just because each of those products are different, and the specification isn't as tight as it should be. So we like to educate people on that. And budget and cost shouldn't be a cloak and dagger subject. We know that everybody has a budget. Doesn't matter if you're building a £200,000 house, 300, 400, 1 million, 2 million, 4 million. Everybody has a budget when it comes to glazing. And a lot of people come in and it's very much a cloak and dagger discussion, because they're scared that glazing suppliers, and it's just a bad reputation the industry has, they're going to start at 60,000, and then they'll phone their manager, and before you know it, after 9 hours, they're going to get the windows for 20 grand. The industry's changed. Maybe the double glazing, hard sell type scenario is very, very similar, but as far as this side of the industry goes, if we know your budget, we can pick the best possible product for your build. It eliminates, from us embarrassing ourselves and going for all singing, all dancing spec, and it narrows down the product offering. So when you come into the showroom, there's no point in us showing you, an ultra slim line, quadruple or triple glazed door, with the best U values in the world at 0.4, 0.5. If you've only got a budget of, 15, 16,000 pounds to build, because that, to put the door in, because that product in itself could be 50, 60, 70,000 pounds just for that one element. So knowing the budget when you come in to see us allows us to sit down and go, right, what can you afford to do? And what are you looking to achieve? And then from that, we can then narrow down our product offering and show you various different options to achieve that solution. So we want to kind of start at the beginning of someone entering into the self-build journey. And when you start the journey, there's a couple of things that we advise people on doing. We speak to people at various stages of the journey. So some people come to us once the project has planner permission, building warrant, and they're 4 weeks away from starting on site, and they still don't have a window manufacturer. For us, it's never too early to speak to someone about windows. If you are thinking about designing a house, if you're thinking about building a house, renovating, extending, spend some of your Saturday, whilst it might not seem the most exciting subject in the world or thing to do on a Saturday afternoon, go out and see some product. Go out and see windows. Discover what you like. And for us, research is key. So, we advise visit showrooms, go to shows like the Self-Build show. If you're in the Swindon area, go to Swindon. It's a fantastic resource. There's lots of manufacturers there. And there's also a plethora of information on websites now. Websites nowadays, you can watch videos on it. You don't actually have to leave your home. Taking safe pictures. So, resources like Pinterest, Instagram, and even if you're driving past a build or you see something that's getting built just now and you like the look of maybe the colour of the window or, a certain angle that they've created or how slim something looks, take pictures. But also, more importantly, consider what's important to your build. We have a lot of clients that come to us and they've designed huge doors, they've designed massive gable windows, they've got French doors out from the master bedroom. And then when you look at it and kind of try to iron it back of why they've done it because they kind of like those elements and other builds that they've seen. But for them, their back garden might be very, very small because it's a tight plot. So why would you want to put in a huge sliding door when there's not really much out there to hook out onto? People might have, again, a tight site. It's a common thing that we see a lot of the time. And clients have, French doors or balcony doors at first floor height, from their master bedroom. And we look at them sometimes and go, well, you're 5 meters from your neighbour's property. Do you want your neighbour to be looking into your bedroom at night? Simple things like this. Think about what is important to you. What are your non-negotiables? Is it, the house faces south and you have a view of the sea? Is it, you've got a fantastic, from one certain angle in your living room, maybe you've got a fantastic view of the hills or the mountains or the fields or whatever else, and you want to encapsulate that and bring it in. Think of those key things and make those your non-negotiables, that when you then go to see a glazing manufacturer, you can kind of say, right, well, look, I know I've got this big sliding door here and I've got this beautiful architectural window in this element, but I'm willing to forego them as long as I can have this. I need to see that mountain, or I need to see that hill, or I need to see the sea from my bedroom. And what it allows you to do is almost cost engineer, and it also gives the supplier areas to work around. They can almost put certain elements to the side and say, okay, we can't touch that, but we can change X, Y, and Z in order to get the product within your budget or to meet your budget. And stick to those non-negotiables. There are ways of engineering cost and engineering the design to incorporate these things, and we'll go into that later down the line. But more importantly, stick to your guns. Once you've made a decision, that's what you should go with. Go with your gut, and be willing to sacrifice other elements in order to incorporate these features that to you must have. A huge thing is see, feel, and touch. So showrooms are a fantastic resource, as are the shows, because you can physically put your hands on product. Okay. As I've said before, when we get drawings in from clients, and sometimes when we speak to clients who have dealt with just their architects at this stage, they're not really educated. They just think, you know, timber aluminium's timber aluminium, PVC's PVC, aluminium's aluminium, and they don't know the differentials between them. So for us, if you're able to go and see something, the biggest thing that we have, certainly in our showroom, is I would say 95% of the inquiries that we get in through the door are for timber aluminium products. And timber aluminium is the most expensive product offering or product range or material banking that you can do. Therefore, you know, already it's going to restrict what can be offered to the market. And they never ever consider UPVC or UPVC aluminium because it's got the word UPVC in it. They instantly think 80s, white gold, this is cheap. And it's not until they come into the showroom, feel the window, look at it, they kind of realise, hang on a minute, this is a different beast altogether. This actually looks really nice. But if we had only exchanged emails with that client and we had only worked on giving them an emailed quotation, they would never have seen that. And they would have probably went with timber aluminium at a higher cost, and it just limits the possibilities. So I would always advise, wherever possible, don't just rely on the quote and the bottom line price. Physically go and see the product and see the products that you're comparing it to. It's not apples for apples. If you can touch something, open it and close it, you'll know almost instantly that there is a difference. We have a kind of analogy, and the easiest thing, you know, being a kind of cynical male, if you like, watches and cars are the easiest thing to kind of use this analogy for. And that is, there's two cars here. The one on the right is a Mercedes G-Wagon. It probably retails for, you know, in excess of £100,000. The one on the left is a little Jeep Renegade, probably retails for maybe £35,000–40,000. Both in their own right, respectively good cars, okay? However, our analogy of what we get asked to do a lot of the time is, Mark, can you quote me for timber aluminium windows, X width, X height? So it's the same analogy as this. If you go into a car dealership and say, right, I'm looking for a black 4x4 with black wheels and black leather interior, and you didn't go and see the cars, you're going to get a quote back from that retailer or from those car dealerships, and then one who's a Mercedes dealership and one who's a Jeep dealership. If you don't know the difference between those products are effectively the same on paper. They are both black, they both have black wheels. However, one's in excess of £100,000 and one's sub £40,000. The watch analogy is exactly the same. You know, I'm in the market for a new watch. Well, what kind of watch? I don't know. I just want a watch with a silver bracelet that tells the time. Okay, no problem. I'll get you some prices. The one on the right is, you know, £15,000–20,000. The one on the left is £20. They both tell the time. They both have metal straps. So don't be as broad stroked. When you go and see the product, take a note of the name of the system that you like. Take a note of the key features of that product that you really, really like, that you don't want to give up on. So when you go to your glazing manufacturer and you ask for a quote, you can say, it must be triple glazed. It must be this finish on the inside. It must be that finish on the outside. I'm looking for this performance level. I would like this type of handle. Does it have concealed hinges? All these little things mean that when you get a quote back, you can make a proper informed decision. Bringing it back to windows as opposed to car and watches, on paper, just off the back of a quote, the product on the left and the product on the right are the same on paper, okay? Now, the product on the right is our product, the product on the left is another. The product on the right is timber, aluminium clad, triple glazed. The product on the left is timber, aluminium clad and triple glazed. However, our product has 3 seals. The product on the left has 2. The product on the right has an insulated frame and sash. The product on the left does not. The product on the right has a bonded glass frame. The product on the left does not. So when we send our quote back out to the client who's went to 2 different manufacturers, one and another, and they get the prices back and they scroll to the bottom of it, they look at U value and they look at price. The U value is the same, or it's within spitting distance, but the price at the bottom in some cases is 20 or 30% apart. So our biggest bit of advice on this is do your research, take note of specification, take note of key features that you want to have present in your window, and when you then go out to tender and you go out to get prices from other manufacturers, you know that what you're getting back is the same or as near as that. Talking about design considerations now, size matters. It's a bit of an innuendo here, but size matters when it comes to windows. Windows are a vain product, as they say. And one of the most common questions that we get from architects and from self-builders themselves is, how big can you make this window? How big can you go? It's not about how big anymore. You can effectively make any window almost any size if you've got the money for it. You can now, it's not uncommon to see windows that's 6-7 meters high in some cases, up to 2-3 meters wide, up to a metric ton per sash. All these things are possible, but it comes at a price. So when you're designing your windows and when you're thinking about it, it's cool and it's awesome to have really nice, big, large windows. We're one of the biggest advocates for it, but people forget that it's the window itself is one part of it. The heavier the window is, the more people it's going to take to physically move that window from one position to another and get it into your house. It may require specialist lifting equipment, like lifting, if you've only got a narrow side, or side of the site down the side of the house, then you might have to crane it over. A crane could be £1,200 to £1,500 per day plus road closure costs. It all adds up. So when you're thinking about designing a product or designing your building, and you're looking at your window design and your fenestration layout, think about, how am I physically going to move this? Could you subdivide it? Could you make the opening slightly more complex, then piece it together on site? Think very, very carefully about that. The other big thing is that, the bigger you go on windows, be it width or height, a lot of projects, certainly in Scotland, we have the SER, Form Q, so Structural Engineers Registrar. Windows need to be certified now. So a window manufacturer and window company will make almost anything. Not a problem at all. If you tell them they want it and you get the money to buy it, they will make it for you. However, you need to have that product certified, and that is not always possible. It might fail, it might not pass the test, and therefore you're into a bigger set of issues later down the line. So always consider how big your windows are and how big the openings are and how you're going to move it when you're getting into the realms of finalising your glazing design. More specifically on height, we're seeing bigger and bigger windows. This project here, the one on the right, that is a 5 metre by 1500, 5 metre by 1800 wide fixed window on the right hand side, which is about to be installed. The one on the left is a double stacked slider in excess of 5 metres, 3.8 metres wide. So yeah, we do them all the time. However, the big thing you need to think about when you're talking about heights and sometimes in terms of widths is think about the optimum height that you want to make your window. A lot of the time we see people coming to us nowadays with windows at 2.8 metres high, and that's great, it's fantastic. Do you need it to be 2.8 metres high though? Consider, dropping the height. The problem you get is over a certain height, you have to change the makeup of the glass. So generally from 0 to 2.2, 2.4, depending on the width, you can get away with a 6 mil glass thickness. So in a triple glaze unit, that'd be 6 mil, 6 mil, 6 mil. The minute you go over 2.4 in height, and you start broaching that 2.5, 2.6, 2.8 and above, you could be in the realms of 8 to 10 mil glass. Now, 2.4 to 2.6 isn't just 200 millimeters. It's the cost of that glass, and what you can do is you can get yourself into a trap where you have an exponential increase in cost very, very quickly, because 8 mil, 10 mil, 12 mil glass units are a lot more than 6 mil glass, and they're a lot more heavy. And again, the only person that can really tell you the thickness of that glass unit is the structural engineer. We can calculate and certify that it's going to stand up to certain wind loads and resistances. However, if you've got a huge opening on your building, you need to make sure that your structural engineer's happy with you to have that window in there. So think very, very carefully about the height of your product and how you're going to physically get that certified at the end of the process, and whether it actually needs to be that height. Are you gaining more light from it being that height? Are you gaining an extra bit of a view? If you took it from 2.8 to 2.4, would the aspect of the building, or the outlooks from the building be any different? Because the truth of the matter is, by dropping it that 400 millimeters, you could save yourself up to 15 to 25% on the cost of the product. So it's just something to consider. Our other motto is keep it simple. Some of the best looking windows that we have done in the past are the simplest. This window here is from a project down in Ambleside. Has taken it at an angle because when you stand back, I couldn't fit the entire window in. That window there is around about 4.2 meters wide and around about 1700 to 1800 high. So it's a huge chunk of glass. However, when that window was originally on the drawings, it had 3 openings in it, and it was very, very expensive. So what you need to think about when you're designing the layout of your fenestration is, the more complex the window and the larger the amount of openings within a single frame, the more expensive that window is to produce. And it seems like a logical approach, but a lot of people don't think about it. So if you have, for example, a window with 2 top hoppers, which is a very traditional, early 90s type design, if that was one large fixed window, say 2/3, and 1/3 of it was just a single opening sash, that would be far cheaper than the latter. So thinking about these things when you're looking at designing your product can make a huge difference. Also, the more complex the window is, it takes longer to manufacture. It's more complex to install. The more openings you have within a single frame means that you're going to have more frame, which is less light. And the more openings you've got as well means that there's more steels within that window. So it can affect the U value and the performance. So if you have a really, really critical performance that you're trying to get to, then really consider simplifying the window, because at the end of the day, you'll get a far better U value out the end of it. Colour considerate. There's a plethora of colours on the market just now. Options have never been better for this type of thing. So be very, very cautious when you're looking at colours for your windows. Colour plays an important factor in the cost of your product, the look and feel of your home, and the options and materials available to you. What we mean by this is we get a lot of inquiries that come in again for the timber aluminium thing, and they say, right, okay, we want it blue on the inside or grey on the inside. Right, well, you're going for a timber aluminium product, which is the most expensive product available on the market. However, you're then painting over a furniture grade timber product. So by being very, very specific about the colour, it's great, because what it then does is it tells you what products are available to you. Blacks, whites, bold colours are making a comeback. So, there is more to the world than 7016 anthracite grey, or as we call it, architect's grey. So like I was saying at the start of the presentation, get a clear idea in your head about colours and what you like the look of, because it helps the designer of the product narrow down the product offering that is most suitable to you and your budget. Some manufacturers have a large bank of standard colours. Some manufacturers have a small bank of standard colours. When you jump out of that standard colour palette, you can then, go into exponential cost increases for doing things bespoke. So having a really good idea on colour is a great thing to come to your glazing supplier with when you're going through the quotation phase. On to product specifics. We obviously sell all of the products that we're talking about here, but as I said, every product has some pros and cons. So when it comes to aluminium products, generally aluminium offers the slimmest sight line available, specifically on slimline, sliding doors and bifolding door systems. Because of the nature of the product, it being aluminium, it's quite a strong multi-chamber material. So it can go higher and wider than timber and PVC because it's more rigid. However, with aluminium, it's harder to make thermally efficient because you've got the same material inside and the same material outside. And although everything we do is thermally broken, it does transfer heat very, very well. So you might not get the U values as low in aluminium systems as you would in the other composites. Aluminium systems are only as good as the fabricator that makes them. So there's a lot of aluminium houses out there, but those companies generally only manufacture the extrusion. Okay, there's very few out there that produce the extrusion in-house and then they physically make it and send it out as a shipped complete product. So you might like a Smarts or a Raynars or a Cortizo type system, but if you look online, there's probably 50 to 100 manufacturers out there or fabricators of that product that make it. So our advice is, again, go and physically see showrooms of these fabricators and see it in person so you know what the quality of the product's going to be like at the end of it. UPVC and UPVC alu, yes, the windows that are in this picture at the back there are PVC. UPVC and UPVC aluminium systems are the most competitively based product, based on performance and aesthetics. You have an almost unlimited range of colours and finishes available, internal and external, including mock timbers. So when I talk about mock timbers, I'm not talking about the old cherry wood or golden oak from the 80s and 90s. You can have concrete now, you can have any RAL colour, you can have larches, spruces, lots of different finishes. It's almost unlimited. Timber and PVC can be put together. So because the way the profiles are made now, you can have a timber aluminium window sat directly next to a PVC aluminium clad window, and they look almost exactly the same from the outside. It's only the internal finish that's different. So that's a good way to cost engineer a project. You'd have your PVC alley clad in the wet areas, kitchens, bathrooms, boot rooms, that type of thing. And then you put your timber aluminium in your, feature rooms, if you like. The negative of UPVC aluminium clad, it's just the stigma. People are still uneducated on how things are done now and what products look like. So again, our big thing is get out, see, feel and touch and have a look at the product itself. This is just some of the colours and textures that are available now due to colour printing, which is a new technology that's been released. You can pretty much get anything you want, and the colour offerings are fantastic. So UPVC and UPVC aluminium clad, when you're looking at high-end architectural glazing, should always be a choice that you consider. It's not for everybody, but for us, it's by far and away becoming one of the most popular products on the market based on price and performance. Timber aluminium, I'm from an architectural background. I was a proper timber aluminium snob back in the day, and all I would ever do is specify timber aluminium windows. I still love the look of timber aluminium. The downside generally on timber alley is it's just more expensive, and it's more expensive because it's a natural product. It takes longer to put together. It's generally hand finished. But it's, again, you have an almost unlimited range of colours and finishes inside and outside. Your architect's probably going to love you for it because they have their feelings on what they want the building to feel like on side. And aesthetically, I think it's a very warm product. It can make the inside of a building feel, warm, homely, almost instantly. even though the rest of the structure is could be concrete or fairly, you know, modern or contemporary, it works in a multitude of applications. In terms of our products, so we work with three manufacturers: Internorm, Daco, and Q4. Internorm, we use each manufacturer for their specific products, because we feel that it gives the widest offering to the clients that we speak with. So Internorm manufacture UPVC aluminium, and timber aluminium. They're Europe's largest window brand, still recognised as a leader of innovation and technology. Lots of different things that they release every year to make their products more smart home ready and energy efficient. And they've been producing composite products for over 90 years, so they're extremely experienced in the field. Internorm for us is still one of, if not the best, window manufacturers in the world. It's a fantastic product and it looks great. Our second product is Daco. It's a polished base fabrication house. Excellent quality and warranties, performance levels in excess of Passive House standard, and it's really great for its lead times. And Daco offer an aluminium system, a PVC system, and an all timber system, all of which can achieve U values below 0.8, and all of which have 3 seals, tilt and turn, so they meet our criteria, and they're all independently tested. Our last manufacturer and kind of most recent one is Daco. Daco is a Romanian-based fabrication house. They specify or specialise in products with ultra slim sightlines. Performance levels again in excess of Passive House, and it's a great, you know, they're a great manufacturer when it comes to people who want oversized windows. So extremely tall, extremely wide, with extremely narrow sight lines. So you get sight lines on sliding doors now down to 28mm. Stunning. So we love Q4. They're a fantastic manufacturer, and they're becoming more and more popular. Obviously, for us, this is a very quick kind of run through of what we do and how we do it. We have our showroom based in Stirling, which you can come and see anything you want. However, we have a huge resource online. So if you want to learn more about glazing in general, architectural glazing, the products that we sell, we've got a YouTube channel which we've got loads and loads of videos on of us. We also document in a kind of vlog style different sites and projects that we're working on, so you can see a process of a journey for a client, from us, you know, designing the windows to them going to site, to us installing them, and everything else in between, as well as running a business and working in the construction industry. We have obviously Instagram, which has, you know, a huge portfolio of projects that we've worked on, as well as guides and videos and helpful tips. And we also have TikTok. Everybody has to be on TikTok nowadays, but again, it's much the same. Lots of short form content, 20-30 seconds, demonstrating our products, taking you around the showroom, showing you what you do. So, you know, if you're looking to learn more about architectural glazing products or the systems that we provide, there's a huge resource online, and you're more than welcome to go and check it out. And obviously you can get in touch with us the usual ways: website, phone, you know, come and visit the showroom. And yeah, that's a brief introduction into the world of architectural glazing, and how we think people should approach the design process and pricing process as a whole, before you start to commit to a buy. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was really, really useful. I think the way you presented everything made it very clear about all the different decisions that can be made, will be made within that glass selection process. So we, as a reminder to everyone who's listening, go ahead and type your questions into the Q&A function. We have had a few that have come up. So I might just start it out by actually asking a question that I received from someone who wasn't sure if they'd be able to attend today, but they were really keen to get your insight on their question. So it has to do with lead times on glass, and I know you mentioned with DACO that actually they have a pretty fast turnover in the window world in terms of time scales. And we often, because we're working with self-builders on low energy houses, we often use off-site manufactured construction systems. So we always say the benefit of that is that you can sort of order windows and doors at the same time as your kit because of the precision of that kit. But what about for someone who is considering a traditional build? Do you have any tips on how to get your windows and doors to site more quickly than you might otherwise be able to with traditional build?
So I think lead times are lead times as far as window manufacturers are concerned. You see it on grand designs all the time. It's always the window manufacturer's fault that the windows are late. The truth of the matter is, what we generally find is that when clients come to us, when you get this scenario where the windows are arriving late or they're going to be delayed, it's because there's so much information to narrow down by the time that the client comes to place the order. Now, that's when things go wrong. So it's for us, that's why we always say it's so important to go and see products as early on as you possibly can, and start, almost narrow down your supplier to 2 people, 3-4 months in advance of you requiring any form of window on site, and have all your questions answered, have all your sizes set out, know exactly what detail and problems you're going to encounter. So when you then say, I'm ready to place my order, and our rule of thumb is, if you need windows on site in 12 weeks' time, you should have your money paid to your glazing supplier, the sizes bottomed out and confirmed at least 14 weeks before. There's not many excuses for windows arriving late, other than trucks breaking down or being held up at customs. Anything that's arriving late to site is generally because someone's all of a sudden said, right, I want windows on site and I need them in 8 weeks. And then we're kind of going, right, well, that's great, but how are you going to fit them into the hole? What's the threshold detail? Are you over-rendering the frame? Are you installing the contraband? What's the side value through the installation? There's so many questions there that if you deal with it at the start of the process and you consider it right the way through the design, it should mean that when you go, I'm ready to order my windows, the glazing manufacturer's going, pushing a button, order with the factory, job done.
Well, and so much of that has to do with your building regs or your building warrant process as well. That if you can make those start to narrow down the manufacturers, then by the time you get to that technical documentation stage, you've made a lot of the difficult decisions that are not purely aesthetic, and you know that you're working with systems and details that are going to be installed.
Exactly, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people think the window is just a simple square hole, square thing that goes in. It's a part of the building. It's a part of the building fabric. It needs to be designed into the building. So these are really, really important things. And if they're only considered, at the point of ordering or a week before the point of ordering, that's generally where things go wrong, because you could end up saying, the window manufacturer could be saying, well, that's not possible. We can't make it like that, or you can't do that. It needs to be designed. The windows should be designed during the course of doing the building warrant application and doing the building warrant drawings. It's at that stage where you iron out all the problems.
Yeah, I think if I can just jump in, I think on that, the modern method of construction versus traditional, I think obviously Mark's right and Jenny's right that your order process is exactly the same. However, the point of being able to confirm the opening size is very different unless you're taking huge risks. So for those who aren't aware, when we do a SIPS timber frame or even an ICF to a certain degree, we'll work with window and door schedules and work with kit drawings. The two have got tolerances. We know that we make the window slightly smaller than the structural opening, so it'll fit in, but that's a given thing, that's a tolerance. And then the two can be done at the same time and arrive pretty much at the same time. When we do a traditional build, we build the hole in brick and block, we measure the hole, we order the windows. Is there anything else changed in that, Mark, in that old-fashioned way of doing it that speeds it up, or are we effectively saying if we're going for more traditional, we are waiting, we're getting the hole built, then we're ordering the windows or confirming the window and door exact size at that point?
Yeah, so I think on the projects that we've worked with on our traditional build, we generally advise on trying to work with cassettes. So obviously you try your best to work to brick and block work sizes when you're building the fabric or building the external leaves or the internal leaves. But a simple thing of having a main contractor basically put in formers to the actual brickwork when you're creating the opening. So for example, if you know that the window is going to be, you want a window in there at 1 metre wide, if you can put in a brickwork former, ply box, whatever it's going to be, at 1.20 meters, for example's sake, and form the brick and block around that for the cost of, a few lengths of ply, maybe £20 a box and some labour to do it, you know that when you take that cassette out, that opening's formed. That is going to be the right size. Traditional build generally has the most amount of flexibility in it, in the way that you're dealing with coursing. So if 300 course of brick, 1 mil in every course, things can change massively over the heights of them. I think the key still is that in some cases it might not be advisable to order the windows when you start on site. It might just have to be that it has to be done once the fabric of the building's erected. However, the most important thing is that all of the other questions and the general details about thresholds, tolerances, building connections, cavity closers, formers, all those are answered and bottom out, so that it is just a case of coming to site, width, bottom, middle and top, height, left, centre, right, smallest height, smallest width, that's your window size.
Excellent. No, that's really useful. Good tip there for how people measure window openings as well. All given today, Mark.
Less the tolerance. Don't just
less the tolerance. Yeah, and we've got a window tolerance and a construction tolerance as well. So we design to zero tolerance in CAD, and then the real world of building happens. One thing, just you mentioned about that you've got non-negotiables in terms of product with the 3 seals, and I think it's. A lot of people on this call won't understand the importance of that or why we have that. So if you could just quickly say a little bit about why it's important to have the 3 seals on the windows.
Yeah, so I suppose it's the same as anything. The argument is £15 is better than £10. It's as simple as that. The serious thing is redundancy. When you've got a window, specifically a tilt and turn window that's opening in, for every interface between every connection of the window, so the very inside of the sash, the middle of the sash, and the outside of the frame, where they all meet, if you have got a seal at every single one of those points, you've got an element of redundancy. So if the seal on the outside, for whatever reason, failed, the seal on the middle of the chamber is then going to back that seal up. If that one fails, you've then got one on the inside. Now, when I talk about things failing, it's not to say that window seals fail all the time. However, we've got a job just now in Inverness. It's the outside of the window's completely been pecked away by birds. The seals have all been pulled out by birds. However, the window's not leaking because the middle seal's doing the job. So for us, it serves 2 purposes. Airtightness is one, that it's hard for air to get through 3 seals, from the inside to out. And water tightness going the other way. And obviously, us being based in Scotland, Ireland, we know we have extremely exposed areas and we have areas that aren't as exposed. I think both are just as important.
Brilliant. Another question, just obviously we've had now to take into account overheating in our buildings, both in Scotland and in England. And it is going to be an area that lots of buildings are going to struggle with that have been built or designed in the last 5 years that haven't been taken into account. Has the window industry reacted to that, or has it more been design-led, or is the products in terms of external shuttering and things? What's your thoughts?
So I think probably the industry, in a generic term, maybe not so much. The industry at the moment, I think, is led a lot by aesthetics. Slim sight lines, everything's slimmer, everything's taller, everything's wider, and exactly like you said, that then brings in the situation where you have this overheating scenario that then develops. When you work in probably our end of the market and industry, so specifically architectural glazing, specifically only dealing with products that are triple glazed, you almost that becomes a very small factor based on the G value and U values performance to the glass that we're using. So naturally overheating is less of an issue when you're utilising triple glazed than you are if you're using something like double glazed, solar gain, all these things. The other big thing is things like UV penetration through glass now. We're noticing that as a huge thing when you've got these such large expanses of glass and people are putting in engineered oak or Meranti, stunning floors. They put them in because they love the colour. 2 years' time, the colour's completely different. It's bleached. You can see the sun lines where the cast shadows are. So I think certainly for us, when you're looking at products with low U values, with the glass technology that's out there now, you're kind of eliminating a lot of the overheating aspect that used to come when you were doing large windows that were double glazed, for example.
Excellent. There's a couple of questions that have come in that I'll just quickly rattle through before we finish up, if that's okay. What should we be looking for in terms of security? And also, are patio doors safer than they used to be?
So, security-wise, 3 main stables: secured by design, or PAS 24, or RC2, RC2Z. It's all just analogies. SBD, RC2, and PAS 24. Effectively, those 3 independent tests say that a product has stood up to, being broken into by pretend burglars, it's been attacked by a hacksaw, the locks have been had a go at, and it resists a certain amount of time. A lot of people think secured by design is the only criteria to go for. It's not the case. RC2, RC3, RCZ, there's different levels to it. And PAS 24, each of them can be independent. You don't have to be PAS 24 secured by design. We've seen windows which are RC2 but don't have those other 2 factors that are just as efficient or as effective at resisting break-in. So my advice to that is, when you go and see a product or you're looking at products online, simply ask the question and see if you've got test data and send it, have a look at it.
Excellent. Couple on, sorry, Mark.
Sliding doors, I think, was another one.
Oh no, it's patio.
Yes.
Patio doors.
Patio doors. So patio doors, yes. Generally now, that's why things like RC2, PAS 24, secured by design was brought in. Generally, if you're buying a product with those accreditations, the door will be no different to the window. So they'll both stand up to the same amount of resistance to burglary and everything else that goes along with it. So yes, they are extremely secure now.
Excellent. Why do windows blow? Sounds like the start of a joke, but it's not.
Yeah. So glass is porous, all right? So much like a balloon, you fill a balloon with helium, you blow it up, you leave it for 2 days, a week, and then the glass that's in there, the inert glass that's between the units, then starts to dissipate. So by the end of it, you've got a very sorry looking balloon. Glass works the same way. Glass should last, 10 to 15 years minimum at its optimal performance. But what effectively happens is, between the glass units, that's filled with inert gas. So inert gas is krypton, argon, that's what takes up that space. If there's a leak in the seal that goes around the glass unit and that inert gas escapes, then what then happens is air gets in there. And because you have a high temperature differential between outside and inside, so outside might be -6, inside might be 21 degrees, and then you've got air in that gap, that air can then condensate, which is why when you look at windows that are blown, they've got condensation in them, and they might be there in the morning, and it's away during the midday because it heats up again, and then it comes back again at night. So the truth of the matter is, glass it can leak, but you should never really have to exchange all your windows because a glass unit has blown. You can just replace the glass units.
Excellent. And the final one just is, again, is on glass. It's how is the glass for panes made? Is it floated or rolled? Sometimes when you see glass window panes, the glass looks warped. Why is that?
Yeah, so like chisholm rolls, we used to call it back in the day, which is when you put when you looked at a window, it would almost have like a warbled, watermarked effect across the front of it. Glass production nowadays, Alan's been out to see one of our glass manufacturing plants in Austria. Most of the glass now is floated. Now, don't be mixed up between float glass, tempered glass, safety glass. That's a completely different subject altogether. But based on the way that we make our units, that's and all the manufacturers that we use, that method's no longer. It's kind of old hat. It doesn't really become an issue anymore.
Excellent. I think we've covered, Jenny, I think that's just covered all the questions that have come in. Yeah,
well, there are a few more in Q&A, but what
okay.
I'm going to say is that some of them are quite project. We've touched on some of them. Some of them are project specific. So in the interest of time and being respectful of everyone's time, I'm just going to ask that would it be okay for individuals to email you directly with some of their questions?
Of course, yep. My email address is mark, M-A-R-K, at Glassworx, Glasswor, with an X, ltd.co.uk.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And we will also send that out in the follow-up email that we send out. Thank you very much, Mark. I think it was obvious from that presentation that a lot of people were really interested in the content based on the number of questions we got from that. So we really appreciate you having here. I'm just going to summarize with the top takeaways that I had jotted down during your presentation. So the first one for me was to be clear about specification, and when you get those quotations back, compare like for like. So you know that what you're looking at are equal specifications. Be really clear about your budget when you're in those designing stages and the product specification, because there can be a huge impact on what decisions are made in terms of design or specification as it relates to your budget. If the budget isn't clear, it's not really possible to make sure that the specification and design fits to that budget. Identify top drivers for your build, and then also key features that you'd want to include in that window and door package. And that's going to help you narrow down your specification. Go see the product and the product comparisons. You may go into a project thinking that you want a certain type of window, but then you see and you feel that window and compare it with others, and you may go down a different route altogether. Design decisions, both in terms of size and in terms of the subdivision of the windows, can really have a significant impact on cost. So if you have, everyone has a budget, as Mark said, so if you can keep those in mind while you're doing the design, then it's going to have an influence on some of those design decisions. So as a reminder, Mark had talked about going and seeing things. We've got a few in-person events coming up. The HBR show in Birmingham at the NEC, that's the largest HBR show on the HBR show calendar. That is taking place at the end of next week, the 20th through the 23rd of March. So if you can make it up to or down to the NEC, please do come by. We'll be there at our stand. AC Structures and AC Architects will both be there. and a lot of other exhibitors, so you can see and feel a lot of the products that are there. Another opportunity is the self-build seminar that is here at the NSBRC on the 12th of April. It's a great opportunity to speak one-to-one and get advice from experts throughout the self-build industry, and also be at the NSBRC, where there are lots of products and exhibitors that you can see their stands and their products in person.